Hi guys, it's Steffi from the Novelty Corner. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to my spoilery review of A Heart So Fierce and Broken by Bridget Kemmerer. As I said, this is going to be a spoilery review, so please do not read it if you have not read the first book in the Curse Breakers series, A Curse So Dark and Lonely. Oh my gosh, I'm going to mix up these titles the whole way through, I can tell. I did receive a copy of A Heart So Fierce and Broken from Bloomsbury Publishing Australia in exchange for a fair and honest review, and that is what I will give it. It's only just been released both here and overseas in the last week, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Now, A Curse So Dark and Lonely was a book that I really enjoyed last year. It had really great representation for cerebral palsy, it was a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and it follows a young woman called Harper who is mistakenly taken through a portal from her home in Washington DC into the land of Emberfall, where she is there to break the curse upon a prince. And this was dark and it was fun and it was full of adventure and full of really great characters. There was a love triangle, well, sort of a love triangle between Harper and Prince Ren and Grey, or Scary Grey as he is affectionately known by both the characters in the book and the fandom at large. And at the end of this book, we discover something about both Ren and Grey, and what we learn about Grey forces him to leave his home of Emberfall. So where A Curse So Dark and Lonely had point of view chapters from Harper and Ren as the main characters, A Heart So Fierce and Broken has point of view chapters from Grey and new character Liamara. The first and last chapters of these books are actually from different characters' perspectives, same with A Curse So Dark and Lonely, just to set the tone and to set sort of where the story has come from and where it's going next. But then we find out exactly where Grey is. We know that Ren and Harper and Ren's guards are searching for Grey to find him and bring him home. They don't know why he's left. They don't even know if he's still alive. They hope that he is. And when we discover Grey, he is in hiding in a small town. He's working for another man. He's basically a stable hand. And he has found and taken under his wing a young teenage boy called Tycho, who is owned by the same person that Grey works for. From the end of the first book, we know that Grey has a secret, and that secret is that he is actually the missing heir to Emberfall. He is actually older than Ren, and neither of them had any idea that they were half siblings, or that Grey actually possesses magic and he is a mage-born. This is a huge problem because Ren is about to take the throne. However, the people of Emberfall have started to lose faith in Ren. They are beginning to sort of see through some of the lies that he has initiated, and Grey has left in order to sort of spare Ren. He really, at the beginning of this book, has no intention of trying to take the throne from Ren. He does not want people to have to choose between him or Ren. This eventually causes some problems later on, and I'll talk about that in a bit. Meanwhile, we meet Liamara, who is the oldest daughter of Karis Lurin, who is sort of a neighbouring ruler who constantly goes to war with Emberfall. Liamara is not the heir her younger sister is, because in their kingdom it is basically a monarchy. It is the most worthy child who is deemed the heir based on what the previous ruler decides. And as it turns out, Liamara's sister Nola Baron is quite ruthless and does exactly what her mother wants. So she has been named heir, and Liamara is essentially just a member of the family. She doesn't have a title, she doesn't have any power. They're all traveling to Emberfall to try and broker a deal with Ren in order to, one, have an alliance, but also secure trading routes to the ocean. And when that falls through, because Ren doesn't trust Liamara's mother at all, they leave, and Liamara then sneaks out and tries to broker a peace with Ren. However, it goes badly. He takes her prisoner and basically holds her as a hostage. Meanwhile, his guards have found Grey. They've dragged him back, and when Grey refuses to give up some information that Ren is looking for, particularly about the name of the heir, Ren has both Grey and Tycho tortured. And that was a really interesting scene to read. So beware, there's torture in this one. It was interesting because I think we start to see the truth behind Ren's character, and in a lot of ways I drew parallels to the A Court of Thorns and Roses series and sort of that shift we get from the main hero of the first book and going, well, hang on, is he actually a hero? Because in this book, Ren does some really questionable and really terrible things in the name of trying to protect his people. That includes torturing his best friend. And eventually they escape, and it's about how Grey and Liamara eventually find common ground, and they try to find the best way to broker peace between both their peoples. And along the way, they pick up a whole bunch of side characters who are just absolutely wonderful, and I'll talk about them in a minute. I will say the first part of this book was a little bit slow getting into it as we're setting up the new characters and the new situation and what's going on. But once we hit maybe a quarter to a third of the way in, where we finally see how far Ren is willing to go and how much Grey is willing to sacrifice in order to keep the peace, I think it really takes off from there, and it's quite fast paced and really gripping, and then you really get to develop the different character relationships for all the new characters in the story, and I thought that was really wonderful, which is why I rated it so highly. First of all, I have to say that I absolutely love Grey. I loved Grey in the first book. I love Grey in this book. I think he's a really interesting character because he really doesn't know what he wants. He doesn't know it in the first book. He doesn't know it in this book. And he makes mistakes all the time. He's an heir to the kingdom, but he doesn't want it. He's used to being a guard. He's grown up in a particular way, and this colors everything that he does. So he doesn't believe that he's a leader of people, and he doesn't believe that he's in charge, and as particularly once they escape the castle, he is the one in charge, and he still makes decisions like he's a guard. So I thought that was really interesting because it takes him time to learn what he needs to do and maybe the things that he also needs to sacrifice in order to bring about peace. I also adored his relationship with Tycho, who is the new character, who's the 15-year-old boy. And Tycho is absolutely devoted to Grey, and it's not a complete blind devotion. He genuinely trusts him and wants to be like him. He looks up to him as a role model, and I just thought it was such a really nice friendship to have in the story, because there are times when Grey does things that Tycho doesn't understand and it hurts his feelings, and there are times where he does things and Tycho basically hero worships him, and all of it's a learning experience, particularly coupled with the other characters that come into it, including Isk, who is a really cool character. He's not a human character. We find out later on that he's quite powerful. He's actually the king of his race. But the way that he approaches things and the way that he helps to teach and train Grey to becoming a ruler, he does it all before we find out who he truly is. And I thought it was a great way to have another character come in and teach Grey about his magic and about how to be a ruler, and it was a really fascinating relationship. Another really cool thing about this book, as I mentioned, the first book has a main character who has cerebral palsy, but what I find with these books is the representation is there, but it's not in your face. It's not constantly dwelled on. It's just part of the story. It pops up here and there in little comments without making a big deal about it. And that includes, so the cerebral palsy representation mentioned. There's also a gay couple in here who are fantastic. I think there is a lot of really fantastic representation of women and women being strong and powerful and not needing men to save them. That's probably more in your face than anything else, but I thought it was really well done, especially with Liamara, who is a very strong, very capable young woman who doesn't need Grey to save her, and quite often she helps save him. But what I liked was how Grey respected that, and he doesn't try to always save her. Sometimes he does, but he lets her be who she is without trying to force his way on her. I think the most fascinating thing for me, and I made a note of this, was that while I was reading, there's quite a few times where Grey reflects on if he had done things differently, would everything have panned out the way that it has? So if he had just told Ren that he was his half-brother, would everything have escalated as much as it did? And I think it's fascinating because I don't think there's an answer to that, because we find out that Ren is absolutely terrified of this idea of magic after everything that happened to him, and that's fair enough. Noah, who is one of the side characters, who is a medical professional from Earth, commented that, you know, he's most likely suffering from PTSD. So the idea that someone could usurp him who has magical powers is going to be very triggering for him. Grey didn't tell him because he genuinely was trying to spare his friend from having to deal with the knowledge that Grey could take his throne, and the idea that Ren might have to kill his friend in order to maintain his throne. Like that's sort of where Grey's thinking was. And yet by not telling him, everything has still gone pear-shaped. And I thought that was a really fascinating thing to unpack, and that comes up time and time again. And I think it was really great that the majority of the characters could see that Grey was actually trying to do what he thought was right. He wasn't trying to make things worse, even if inadvertently that has happened at times. And then seeing that, you know, all characters make mistakes. Before I finish up this video, there were two quotes that I really loved that I wanted to share. And I think this first one, it's a quote from Grey, and it really sums up that idea that he still thinks of himself as a guard. And he's talking to Liamara, and she's been injured because of everything that's going on with him. And he's been in to see her, and neither of them can sleep. And he's just about to leave her room, and she's obviously nervous, like it's been a really trying day. And I think this really sums up his character. He goes, I know I may not want to be king, but I know how to be a guard. And that is really, really central to his character. And the second quote is a Liamara quote, because I did love her. I know I didn't talk about her in this video, but I really did love her as a character. Gray and Liamara are at a dinner with her mother and her mother's court, and Liamara has slipped out, and then Gray has slipped out to try and find her, and she's sitting somewhere else. She's reading a book away from everything that's going on. Gray comments that she's possibly the most dangerous person in the room because no one assumes anything of her. And her reply is, "Ah yes, the most dangerous person at the party is always the girl sitting alone with a book." And that just spoke to my soul. Those are my spoilery thoughts on A Heart So Fierce and Broken, and I'm pretty sure that future me is going to hate editing this video because I don't know how coherent I was, so I apologize in advance. But those are sort of my rambly thoughts. I really enjoyed this book. But yes, that last chapter, that really threw me for a loop, and I can't wait to see what Bridget Kemmerer does with the rest of the series. In the comments below, let me know if you have read the series and what your thoughts are on it. If you have read A Heart So Fierce and Broken, any thoughts down below. So consider the comments spoiler zone as well. I hope that wherever you are in the world, you're having a wonderful day, and I'll catch you guys in my next video. Bye guys.